Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you here today with a video from the Daily Wire, an article from the Daily Wire from some undetermined date. It doesn't actually say, but it was very recent from the time that I am recording this. Um, and I didn't know anything about this topic at all. I mean, of course, I'd heard of Ruby Ridge, but I really don't know anything about it. So I figured it'd be interesting for us to go through it together here. So I'm going to go through it. And the article is called Ruby Ridge, 31 years later, one of the worst examples of government inflicted terrorism against an innocent U.S. citizen. So let us dive in. It says Randy Weaver was a former Army Green Beret who, in the late 1970s, worked in an Iowa factory, providing for his wife, Vicki, and their children. A devout religious family, the Weavers decided to leave Iowa and move to Ruby Ridge in Idaho, just 50 miles from the Canadian border, believing the apocalypse is coming. They built a small cabin on the top of the mountain and lived there for years with little incident. It says in 1984, however, a dispute with a neighbor ended with the neighbor being ordered to pay Weaver $2,100. Furious, this neighbor wrote letters to the FBI, Secret Service, and county sheriff claiming Weaver had threatened to kill the Pope, President Ronald Reagan, and the Idaho governor. Oh, so this neighbor's a piece of shit. Wonderful. That's how we're starting this. Those charges were never filed, but the investigation led to questions about Weaver's association with the neo-Nazi group known as Aryan Nations. So, well, that doesn't make him look good. It says, while Weaver and his family had attended some of their meetings socially, he was never a member. Well, it's still not good. But the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the ATF, which should be abolished, used this connection to entrap Weaver. Oh, wonderful. Yep, here comes the ATF doing typical ATF's anti-constitutional stuff. Does a confidential ATF informant attended the World Aryan Congress, his first time attending. He had been invited by Frank Kumnick, a known associate of Aryan Nations and a previous ATF target. While at this Congress, the ATF informant started talking to Weaver, and the two would continue to meet several times. Oh, yeah, that's total entrapment. In October 1989, the informant claimed Weaver had sold him two sawed-off shotguns, a federal crime. It is widely believed that Weaver was not a man regularly altering shotguns and selling them, but that he had been coerced into doing so by the ATF informant, which, again, given the ATF and their BS, would not surprise me even the slightest bit. So it says the ATF's informant's handler, Herb Byerly, in June 1990 used the weapon charge as a leverage to force Weaver to act as his new informant. Weaver refused to be a snitch and was charged for the sawed-off shotguns. All right. Does the ATF also claim that Weaver had several criminal convictions and had robbed banks, claims that were later determined to be false by a 1995 Senate investigation into the events of August 1992? Wow. So this guy just has people, even though he's with a bunch of shit people like the Aryan Nations, this guy's got a lot of people making up crap about him, and he's getting hit by everybody about everything, about all the lies. In December 1990, a federal grand jury indicted Weaver for making and possessing illegal firearms. He was not indicted for selling those firearms. I mean, of course, if it really is illegal, and I don't know that, but it seems like it is, and yeah, you can't do that. So it says, based on its own false claims, the ATF decided it was too dangerous to arrest Weaver at his home, so once again, they tricked him. Again, I'm not surprised. His agents posing as motorists who had broken down on the side of the road arrested Weaver when he and his wife stopped to help them, putting them face down in the snow. Weaver was released on bail and told his trial would begin February 19th of 1991. Through court maneuvering, the start date moved and Weaver became confused. Weaver didn't show up, but believing he may have thought the trial date was moved to March 20th, the United States Marshal Service agreed to wait until after that day before arresting Weaver for failure to appear in court. And on March 14th, however, the U.S. Attorney's Office called a grand jury to indict Weaver for not appearing. So the government is basically, as the article's title said, doing government stuff and overreaching. So that's always fantastic and already kind of like a lesson to everybody here. Because once the case was in the U.S. Marshal's hands, as Weaver was now considered a fugitive, they were not informed that the ATF had attempted to make Weaver an informant. Because why would they do that? Why would they tell anybody else the truth? Why would the government tell you the truth about something? I don't know. Just believing that he would not receive a fair trial based on everything that had happened so far, and I can't say I blame the poor guy, says Weaver refused to appear for his trial. At one point, his defense attorney erroneously told him that if he lost the trial, he would lose his land, leaving his wife homeless, and the government would take his children. And given what this guy's already been told and what he thinks by this point, even though I personally seeing this from the outside wouldn't believe that, I can understand why he certainly would. So it says Weaver's distrust in the government grew exponentially after this, as I would expect, and he refused to surrender when the U.S. Marshals attempted to contact him. Over the next year, U.S. Marshals made numerous attempts to negotiate Weaver's surrender using third parties and posing as potential property buyers. As during this time, the Marshals also developed a threat source profile on Weaver that painted him as an anti-government radical who was armed and dangerous. It included a psychological profile completed by someone who had never met Weaver and knew so little about the case that he called him Mr. Randall. Wow, okay. So the government's gonna be corrupt and stupid, and the people that are supposedly trying to help them are basically the same. So beginning in March of 1992, U.S. Marshals sent surveillance teams to set up cameras around the Weaver's property to record their activity. Marshals saw that Weaver and his family would take up armed positions whenever a vehicle or visitor arrived on their property, but would lower their weapons once they recognized the person. Okay. Mhm. Says on April 18th, 1992, a helicopter flew over Weaver's property after being hired by Geraldo Rivera's news program at the time. Now it can be told. U.S. Marshals claim they received reports that Weaver shot at the helicopter, but the Marshals' own surveillance team on the property that day reported no shots. Weaver also denied the reports, and the helicopter pilot told the FBI that Weaver didn't shoot at his helicopter. Okay, so someone lied, and everyone's saying, yeah, it never happened. Says, but U.S. Marshals and the FBI use these false claims, and I'm not surprised that this is going to happen, as justification for the rules of engagement that would follow in moving on to Weaver's property to arrest him. Yep, can't say I'm surprised, and that must be him right there. Just 3 months later, after Henry E. Hudson was confirmed as the new head of the Marshal Service, 6 marshals went to Weaver's property on August 21st, 1992, to scout places where Weaver could be arrested away from his cabin. The team, dressed in military camouflage and carrying M16 rifles, at one point threw some rocks to test Weaver's dog's reaction. The dogs barked, and Weaver's friend Kevin Harris, as well as Weaver's 14-year-old son Sammy, followed the dogs to investigate. Weaver took a different route to follow the dogs, all hoping the dogs had found some deer. And at this point, the stories diverge. All right, so here's where we're about to get heavy. Because Weaver and Harris claim that Harris and Sammy found the heavily armed marshals and that their dog, Stryker, started barking at the marshals. The marshals shot and killed Stryker. Of course, you have to kill the dog, assholes. And Sammy then allegedly fired a shot near the marshals and yelled at them about killing his dog, which prompted the marshals to begin shooting. Christ, they killed the kid, didn't they? Sammy tried to run up the nearby hill and was shot in the back by U.S. Marshal Larry Cooper, and he died instantly. Well, F that dude. He killed a kid. And again, the stories diverge, so we're probably going to hear another story that says he didn't shoot, I'm guessing, but we'll see farther down. It says the U.S. Marshals claim that they gave Weaver a surrender order that Harris began firing at them, so they fired back and ended up killing Sammy and Stryker. And at this time, Harris shot U.S. Marshal William Deegan in the chest and killed him. Weaver and Harris returned to the cabin and told Weaver's wife Vicky what happened. She and Weaver reportedly went out to get Sammy's body and bring him back to the cabin, with the family grieving his death. They had to put his body in a shed near the main cabin because they couldn't leave the property. Jesus H. Now, the marshals, ATF, and the FBI are involved, which, yay, with agents sent to the Weavers' property. 10 FBI snipers were dispatched to surround the property, and the FBI and the Marshal Service approved a special rules of engagement draft that allowed agents to use deadly force if any adult on the property is seen with a weapon after they have been told to fire. The draft also said any dog on the property can be shot if any agent is compromised by the dog. Didn't sound like that was the situation before, that the dog was just barking at them and they just hauled off and shot the dog. So the draft also noted that if anyone on the property presented the threat of death or grievous bodily harm other than Weaver, Harris, or Vicky, then the FBI's rules of deadly force would apply, meaning they could be killed in order to prevent death or grievous bodily injury to someone else. Further, agents could kill any adult male if they were seen with a weapon and if the shot would not endanger Weaver's children. Whoops! You guys fucked that one up already. Sorry about the language, but yeah, that was kind of necessary there. So it says for 11 days, a standoff ensued. On August 22nd, before negotiators arrived, FBI sniper Lon Horiuchi opened fire at the Weavers. He shot Weaver in the back while he was lifting the latch on the shed to visit Sam's body. The bullet exited Weaver's right armpit, and Horiuchi later testified that he had been aiming for Weaver's spine, but that Weaver moved at the last second. Weaver had been out with his 16-year-old daughter, Sarah, and Harris when the shot was fired. They ran back to the cabin. Horiuchi fired another shot, this time striking Harris in the chest. This bullet also killed Vicky Weaver, who had been standing at the cabin door when Harris entered, and she was holding her 10-month-old baby, Elishiba. Jesus Christ. In American Experience, Ruby Ridge, a documentary that aired on PBS in 2020, Sarah Weaver described the moment her mother was murdered. And I felt things hit my face, and my mom dropped next to me, Sarah said, her voice breaking as she held back tears. It took me a second to comprehend that my mom had just died and that it was parts of her that had hit my face. Man, and this doesn't say how old this girl was, but man, she must have been young. Christ. It says Weaver picked up the body and gave Yeah, hold on. Weaver picked up the baby. I'm sorry, picked up the baby and gave her to one of his other daughters so that he could pull Vicky's body into the cabin. We were being hunted. That's how it felt, Sarah added. Horiuchi was charged with manslaughter for the killing of Vicky, but the charges were later dismissed despite so many people witnessing the shooting. Yeah, I was going to say before, well, as soon as I hit the comma over here, that probably nothing happened to the guy, and that certainly seems to be the case. And yeah, like, why was he shooting? Like, they said that, what did the rules say? That, like, basically don't shoot at them until, like, you feel like you're in danger, and, like, nothing was happening to the FBI. They just decided, screw it, let's shoot him. I don't know how that guy wasn't prosecuted because that is murder, what that guy did. Says in the early days of the siege, media outlets were only able to receive information from government sources, so their coverage was skewed as white supremacists shooting federal agents, of course. The narrative began to shift when the FBI told reporters that it had found 14-year-old Sammy Weaver's body. Yeah, that's going to change things really quick when you find out a kid was killed and it wasn't killed by the family. Says hostage negotiators didn't know that Vicky had died until days later, so they kept directing their negotiations toward her, believing she would be the one to talk Weaver into surrendering. Inside the Weaver household, with Vicky lying dead on the floor, the family believed the government was taunting them when they continued to speak to Vicky. Sarah said her father wanted to yell at the negotiators for doing this, but she stopped him because she truly believed agents would shoot her father if he went near a window. Okay, so this girl's probably a little older than I figured. Thought she'd probably be like 5, 6, 7 in that age, but it seems like she probably was maybe a little over that age. Um, so they had proven that they were there to shoot us, right? Yeah, I mean, it seems like that was the case. Was just they were like, screw it, we're just gonna do whatever we can to kill this guy. That's the impression I'm getting. Says with no solution in sight, and the FBI finally realizing that the intelligence they had been given about Weaver was inaccurate, they called in James Gordon Bo Gritz, a retired U.S. Army Special Forces officer who was known to associate with right-wing militia groups, to talk to Weaver. At Gritz's first discussion with the Weavers, he returned to the FBI agents and told them that they had really messed things up and that Vicky was dead and Weaver and Harris were wounded. Eventually, Gritz convinced Weaver to send Harris out so that he could get medical attention and brought a body back to remove Vicky's body from the cabin. As Sarah Weaver described, the entire family grieved as they took Vicky away. Yeah, I imagine you did. So as Weaver became adamant that he and his daughters would not leave the cabin due to the deaths of Sammy and Vicky, but Gritz refused to leave as well and was eventually able to get Weaver to leave the cabin with his daughters. Sarah said she fully expected to die when they left the cabin. I wouldn't doubt it for a second if she thought that. Says believing she and her sister would be shot by government agents. When they left, they passed the military encampment that had been set up to handle the Weaver situation, saying it made no sense to have such a large presence for their little family. I don't disagree. Says Weaver and Harris were charged with numerous offenses, with Harris being charged with first-degree murder for the death of U.S. Marshal Bill Deegan. Both were acquitted on all charges, except Weaver was found guilty of the original charge for missing his court date and violating his bail conditions. He spent 16 months in prison and was fined $10,000. Okay, so I guess I'm okay with that. I mean, the government screwed him over, but I mean, it was kind of like, well, we have to get you for something, so they did that, and okay. Since 1995, the Government Accountability Office and the U.S. Senate investigated the siege on the Weavers and presented a report that found numerous errors by law enforcement. You don't say, including deeming the rules of engagement to be unconstitutional. Yeah, I was even thinking that when it said that we've drafted these rules specifically for, yeah, assholes, you can't just like do that. This is Weaver and his daughter sued the federal government for the wrongful death of his wife and 14-year-old son. And in August 1995, Weaver settled for 100 grand, and each of his three daughters received 1 million. Well, good for them. They'd asked for 200 million. They should have gotten 200 million. No, they should have just been given the keys to the Fed and just been like, "What do you want? Just take what you can. Bring whatever, get like a semi truck and whatever you can fit in there, you can take." Says Randy Weaver died on he only died like not even a year and a half ago on May 11th, 2022 at the age of 74, just shy of the 30-year anniversary of the siege. I thought everybody was killed. I mean, that's what I thought about this. Like I said, I never knew about this beforehand. So I just figured the whole family was killed, but still, what happened was awful. The mom and the kid, the son were killed. Jesus. That's awful. Yeah, this sounds like the government just yeah, you guys pooched this one. Oops, real bad. Real bad. Yeah, totally. I have no reason to doubt this article, and I would say, yeah, the government really screwed this one up. So let me know what you guys think about this. Again, this is my first time reading anything about this situation at all. Again, like I said at the very beginning, I'd heard of this, but I'd never read anything about it. Um, if there's any other details that you think are necessary for me to know, because I am interested in this now, let me know in the comments below. And as usual, like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.